we're lucky to have two of the foremost voices on English rugby with us tonight, in Lawrence and Ugo, of course. But before we get their thoughts on England's opening match, I can't do this and link to Eddie Jones. I can't take it off. Of course, England's opening match in the Six Nations is against Scotland very soon indeed. A little earlier, I spoke to the head honcho, the big cheese himself, Eddie Jones. Let's hear what he had to say. Well, Eddie Jones, first up, belated happy birthday. Yesterday, I believe. I won't mention the age. Big day.
Yeah, not too many to go, mate. So I got to enjoy them.
And yourself and Matt Proudfoot as well. Did you have a little? Did you have a little Zoom Malbec to celebrate?
No, he's still recovering, mate. So it was just a bit of chocolate cake.
How's he getting on? How is he?
No, he's going well. He's gets a little bit tired, but he's progressing nicely.
It's such an unbelievable learning curve, Eddie, isn't it, for everybody in every facet of life, from people watching it at home to you there in the England camp. And you're such an organised person, you have everything mapped out. How are you dealing with the kind of frenetic nature of everything changing all the time and all these unexpected changes?
Yeah, I think you just got to adapt, and then you got to evolve into a team or a person who can survive and then find a way to prosper, mate. Yeah, and we look at everything as an opportunity to get a little bit better, how we can do it a little bit better. Yeah, and I think we've seen in the Premier League particularly and the Premiership that teams have their ups and downs, and your ability to stay focused and stay in control of the things you can control, not worry about the things you can't control too much.
How has it been for you mentally, Eddie? Have you had your ups and downs throughout this whole virus?
The only time I really struggled, I must admit, was about the 9th day of isolation. I was going a bit, thought, I don't know how much longer I can do this, but I've seen it as an opportunity to learn and grow as a coach. Yeah, we've got to find different ways of communicating and interacting with the players. And, you know, the game of rugby is an action game and it's an interaction game. And the bit that's the difficult bit at the moment is the interaction because of the COVID regulations. So we just got to find a way around it.
With all that in mind, Eddie, I was thinking yesterday, as I said in Kingsholm, watching Gloucester go at it with Northampton Saints, how lucky I am to actually go and see a live game. But even on Friday night to see the West Country Derby, it was just a joy to have rugby on. And then I look at the papers this weekend and look, these are stories and they're big stories, they're important stories. Is the Lions tour going to go ahead? Positive, negative side of that. Was the autumn series a success or was it just boring? What's going to happen with relegation? There seems to be a lot of edge, a lot of negativity out there, a lot of speculation, counter speculation. I'm just wondering how you feel rugby is at the moment, the state of its health.
Look, yeah, from our point of view, we're just so grateful to play rugby. Yeah, I love sport, and I think rugby's one of the greatest games we have. And we have good games and we have bad games. We have good periods, we have bad periods. Yeah, I watched 2 Premier League games. I watched Liverpool play Man United, and I've never seen such a fantastic game, ball end to end. Then I watched Man United play Arsenal last night, and yeah, I needed some extra sleep because it wasn't a great game. So our game changes all the time. You know, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. But what we do have is a fantastically competitive game. We have a game that flourishes at the international level and at the domestic level helps drive the traditional rivalry and new rivalries. And I think the game's pretty healthy.
Let's talk Six Nations. Let's have a look at your squad. Almost set to go, of course, just around the corner. And it's an interesting squad. A few changes, some familiar names not in there. Jonathan Joseph out. Delighted to see the likes of Paolo Odogwu in there as well. He's just, I love watching him on the pitch, Eddie, even off the ball. Big smile on his face, his enthusiasm. And that kind of injection of a new face in there and a new energy. How does that work within a squad? What does that do to a squad?
Well, from a strategic point of view, we try to renew the squad by about 10 to 20% every time. So a couple of guys drop out and a couple of guys come through. So we're always looking for good new talent and players who have the potential to be world class. And to be world class, you need to have one part of your game that gives you a point of difference. And yeah, the 3 guys we've brought in have that potential. You know, Harry Randall's got that. He's an unusual player because he's so small and he's so quick on his feet. He brings something to the attack, and Parlo's. Yeah, I remember watching him when Steve Diamond was a director of rugby at Sale, and he was a powerful guy, but maybe a little bit lazy. And now at Wasps, he's had a bit more game time, found his feet a bit more. He's got fantastic power, you know, ability to beat people, ability to find the line, and a great enthusiasm for the game, which is so important.
How much of a role did you have in him moving from the wing into the centre? Is that where you always saw him playing?
None at all, mate.
You're not going to claim it.
No, not at all. All that's down to some good coaching from Wasps.
The energy he brings in, that positivity, and it was interesting. I heard you talk earlier in the week about trying to stay ahead of the curve in terms of how rugby is played, and maybe over the last year or two it's been a big kick chase game, a big press defence, and you're trying to move on to that next level. So what is that next level? And look, the likes of Paolo and his big line breaks, is that the way you see it going, a more attacking game?
Well, we don't know. But what we do know about rugby is that we cycle between a kicking cycle, which is generally a big contest cycle where it's hard to win quick ball. And then, you know, we get the media, and as soon as the media start getting on the case, then the administrators think, well, we've got to make some alterations to the laws. And we go to a more continuous cycle where we get quicker ball, and we go to an attacking cycle. And then people say it's becoming too much like rugby league. We can't have that. So let's get more contests, and it goes back again. You know, I've seen that cycle probably 5 or 6 times now. And we're in a big contest kicking cycle at the moment. It might last a bit longer, or it might break. And a lot will depend on how the media reacts, how the administrators reacts, and then how the defence reacts. So if we get some quick ruck ball during the Six Nations, we could see a lot more attack. If we get slow ruck ball, then it'll be more of the same, mate. Good, hard contests like playing Test cricket on the subcontinent where it's a slog.
I guess the media, what they do is reflect, for the most part, what the fans are thinking. And that's what we're going to do now, Eddie. We're going to fly through these. These are kind of quick-fire questions that have come in from fans. They have a lot they want to ask you about. I'm going to start on that, actually. I'm going to spin down to these. And these tend to come from Bristol Bear fans at the moment. But they want to know... this is from Martin Bagheera. Tactically, will it be a boring kicking game or attacking, entertaining rugby from the Bristol playbook? Guess who he supports?
Well, Martin, Bristol aren't the only team that can attack, but there's a lot of good teams that can attack, and Test rugby's about winning the opportunity to attack. So we want to always go out there and play good, positive rugby. But sometimes you got to win in other ways.
Ian Johnson, similar kind of vein, but slightly different. Hi, Eddie. Why can't England play like the Bristol Bears? I guess because the Premiership is different to Test rugby.
Well, I asked the question, can Bristol play like England if they were playing at Test level? Yeah, it's all different. It's all relative to the level of the game you're playing. You know, we'd all like to play like Bristol did. You know, I coached Japan. We played ruck and run. We played quick the whole time. And that was how the rugby was at that time. But at the moment, it's not like that. And we've got to adapt to those conditions. And if the conditions change, we'll adapt to the next set of conditions.
David Taylor, tricky one here. At Iceman, David 2K10. How far behind the Simmonds brothers from getting selected? And he would like to see Joe Simmonds and Owen Farrell as a 10-12 combo. So Simmonds brothers, constant conversation. What do they have to do to get in your team?
Well, the Iceman, selection is one of the great things. And particularly in England, where we've got 12 club teams. We've got a lot of good players. There's a lot of conjecture about selection, and ultimately it comes down to a judgment by myself and the coaches. Both of those boys are good players, and we continue looking at their progress, so you don't know what the future will bring.
Alex Skitt, who's the brightest young coach coming through in England, and it's been a difficult time for England coaches. Paul Gustard leaving Quins, of course, during the week. Stuart Hooper struggling now with Bath under pressure. George Skivington, difficult day yesterday. Jordan Murphy, of course, at Leicester Tigers last season. It's tough being a newbie on the block, isn't it?
Yeah, well, coaching's a craft. You know, you've got to learn your craft, and no one knows their coach until they've lost 5 games or be sacked. You know, we've all been through that. Every coach has been through that. and that's part of learning your craft. And there's a lot of good young coaches out there. They'll need to find their opportunity, and once they get their opportunity, take it. You know, we've brought in young Ed Robinson from Jersey. He's 27 years old, but he's been coaching diligently since the age of 19, where unfortunately he had a concussion, and that drove him to coaching. He loves the craft of coaching, wants to be better, studies hard, and he's a good young guy, and I'm sure there's plenty of others out there.
This, one of the last ones here, this is from Kingy Curly Mop, and he says, Lions tour, should it happen in South Africa? Should it happen in Australia? Should it happen at all?
Well, I think everyone wants to see the Lions tour go ahead. You know, it's a great celebration of rugby. It's great for the Southern Hemisphere countries and for South Africa now. And it's also great for the players and the supporters that you see all the best players from the four nations together playing against each other in these historic series that generally are like a bit of a soap opera. So I think we all want it to go ahead, but ultimately the decision is going to be made at this time on health reasons, and we just have to be guided by the health reasons.
And this is a very important one, and we'll end on this one. I've got so many more I'd like to ask you. It comes from Ian Alexander. What would be the biggest animal that Eddie could single-handedly cling film to a lamppost? The world needs to know.
Well, the only animal I worry about is my dog. He's a little papillon who only answers to my wife. So she's quite headstrong. She only speaks Japanese. Doesn't reply to my bad Australian English.
And I just want to leave you on one last thought from myself, if you don't mind. You're the bookies' favourite to win. Who's your biggest threat in the Six Nations?
Oh, Scotland, mate. That's the only game we have to worry about. We had a session yesterday. It was like being at Murrayfield last year. It was like a training in a blizzard. Henry Slade said, yeah, after the first drill, he couldn't feel his hand. So it was great preparation for playing against Scotland.
Brilliant. Eddie, look, thank you so much for your time today, and good luck with the Six Nations. Great talking to you. Take care.
Okay. And thanks, guys, for the great job you're doing on BT with rugby. Cheers.
Oh, that's my new phone ring. Thank you very much, Eddie. Fair play to Eddie. Thank you all for your questions, by the way. We will try and do that again, because it's great to get all the interaction with the fans out there. What you think is really the most important thing. So we will do that again.